I think I'm preferring beach read. I'm so excited. Oh my god, I finished Fourth Wing and welcome back to another vlog. I am about to head into the city to go look at some bookshops and then probably grab some lunch. Currently in my reading era. I go through these phases and right now I'm in a very good reading era. So I thought I'd give you a little update of what I'm currently reading. So right now I'm reading Beach Reads by Emily Henry. I have already read her book Happy Place, and I think this will be a controversial opinion because that seems to be everyone's favourite book. But I think I'm preferring Beach Read. I'm about halfway through, and essentially it is about two people who are currently like living in the same town next door to each other that are both authors with writer's block. The main character's father passed away quite recently, and at the funeral she found out that he was living a double life and had a mistress. So that is kind of like the back plot, and then you're following the two main characters whilst they develop feelings for each other. But I prefer the plot in this one than Happy Place. I think I prefer the writing in Happy Place, but this one is written from the perspective of the main female character who is an author, so I also understand the extra like detail in writing because it is written from the perspective of like an author. So that is what I'm currently reading. I'll keep you updated in this vlog how I'm going because I'll probably finish it in the next couple of days. I also just finished Red, White and Royal Blue and I really enjoyed it. So if you haven't heard about that book, it's essentially the first son of America. So like the president's son falls in love with the Prince of Wales, so like the Prince of England. There is a movie but I haven't watched it yet, but I've also heard that the movie gets rid of a few main characters. So I don't know if I want to watch it, but I really enjoyed it. The reviews I've seen so far say that the politics, because obviously one of them is the son of the president, dropped their rating for them because they found it a little bit boring. But I actually loved the added addition of the politics. So that's what I also just recently read. But I am going into the city to try to find Fourth Wing because that's going to be our book club book for the month. I think it's like a fantasy young adult story, but if I find it, I will update you on what the blurb and the general premise of that book is about. So let's go to the city. I'm back. We went to 4 bookshops actually. So we went to Kmart, then we went to Dymocks, then I went to Boffin's Book, and then my partner and I had lunch at the Italian Street Kitchen in Perth. Highly recommend. And then we went to Planet Books on the way home. So I bought a book at every shop except Boffin's Book, but they did have a lot. I just didn't buy any there today. So let's do the little book haul. The first book I bought in Kmart was The Things We Left Behind. So this is by Lucy Score. This is the 3rd book in a series and I haven't actually started the series yet, but I bought the first 2 off Amazon. One has come in the mail, but the second one is still coming. So once all my Amazon books have come, I will give you a little haul of Amazon books as well in this vlog. But from what I know, this is a small town romance and it follows a couple each story. So like the first one will follow one couple, but you're also introduced to the second and third couple, and then the next book will give you the story about a second couple and so on. So I'm very excited to start it. I've heard mixed things about the 3rd book, which is Things We Left Behind, but I think the first and second are supposed to be good, especially the second. So I'm excited to give those a read. And then we went to Dymocks, and I got Fourth Wing, which I think I mentioned at the start of the vlog. So this is my book club read. What I can gather, it's following a fantasy world where our main character is quite a small human that needs to bond with a dragon, and apparently like dragons don't generally bond with the more fragile humans. I don't actually know much about this book, but I've read amazing things. So this is our book read month. So I'm sure I'll start this month as well. So I'll give you updates of how I'm going with this, but that is the next book I got. And then I actually got a second book from Dymocks, and I got the Inheritance Games, which I've heard amazing things about as well. I tend to read romance books, so I'm trying to branch out a bit, which is why I've got Fourth Wing, which I do think it has a bit of romance in it, but it's generally in the fantasy world. And then we have this one, which is, from what I know, it's about the main character who inherits $1 billion suddenly, and she doesn't know why. So the book is following like the story unraveling why they got the inheritance. There is another one. There are 2 other books in this series. So there's the Hawthorne Legacy and the Final Gambit, but I believe this is the first one into the series. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. So excited to give that a go and branch out a bit. At Dymocks, my partner also got a book, so I thought I'd just show you the one that he got. So he got the Satanic Verses, and this one is by Salman Rushdie. So that is the one he got. I don't know much about this, but it sounds pretty interesting. It seems like a good versus evil situation. So that is the one that he got. I'll let you know if he reads it, if I read it, what my thoughts are. It's definitely not in the general genre that I read, but still. Then Boffins, I didn't buy anything, but then we also went to Planet Books, and I got this one, which I haven't heard anything about, but it just looked and sounded so interesting. So it's called Try Time at Cinnamon Gardens, and what I can gather is Cinnamon Gardens is a nursing home, and the book is essentially following like the residents there and their stories about their life, good and bad. So I find this kind of story very interesting when you are meeting with old people and they tell you like the good and the bad from their life, and they're just unapologetic. So I'm quite interested to read this book. I had a really quick Google and the reviews seem pretty good, but I haven't heard very much about it. So if you've read it, let me know. But it is by Shankari Chandran, and I am so excited. And look at that cover. It is beautiful. And then my partner also got a book here, a very, very big chunky book, and this is a memoir. So it's the David Lynch book, Room to Dream, by David Lynch and Christine McKenna. Thought that I'd just include it because it is also another book that he picked up. That is the little book haul. I'm gonna go have a rest. I think I'm gonna read some of Beach Reads, and then I will update you later on how I'm enjoying this book. But I'm excited to branch out a bit more. Definitely let me know some book recommendations in the comments, especially for someone that's just getting back into it. And I do tend to read quite easy reads. I tend to just read romance books, and I also do read like World War II books. For example, Happiest Man Ever, really love that. Tales of Auschwitz, I've read Schindler's Ark, I've got Anne Frank's Diary, and Life in the Third Reich. So if you have anything outside of those 2 genres, definitely let me know, because I'm trying to branch out. If you have like a good fantasy or sci-fi book that you'd recommend to a beginner trying to get into those, please do let me know. But those are the little book hauls, and I'll check in with you later. Oh, I look terrible. Ignore what I look like, but last night I finished Beach Read, and I really, really enjoyed this. I preferred this book to Happy Place, which I think is controversial, but I just thought that this was like a more realistic love story, and it also had like the subplot. Of course, like a lot of romance novels, a lot of romance films, there are going to be points where you're just kind of shouting at the characters. For example, in this book, the main character, January's father, passed away at the start, and she found out that he had a mistress at his funeral, and that's kind of like a subplot throughout. And there is a letter that he left her, and she doesn't read until like literally the last chapter or the last 2 chapters, and she keeps referencing it throughout the book. And some points you're like, just read the letter, just open it, just read it, come on girl, get it done with. But aside from that, I really loved the way that this was written. The 2 main characters, January and Gus, are both authors. So it is quite a descriptively written book because it is written from January's perspective, but I could also appreciate the way that it was written when I consider that she is an author, if that makes any sense. So if you're looking for like a good romance book to read, I really recommend Beach Read. I'm trying to decide what I should read next. I have Fourth Wing, which I've heard such amazing things about, and this is my book, but I've also heard that after you read it, you kind of need a little break from reading because you're like on such a high and then you dip. So I don't know if I'll read this next, or maybe I'll read Inheritance Games because that doesn't look too long. So I'll keep you updated. I need to make my dinner and I'm going to yin yoga first, but when I come back I think I'm going to start a new book. So maybe Fourth Wing or Inheritance Game. And I thought that I would come on and give you an update on how I'm going. So I started Fourth Wing and I'm probably 2/3 of the way through and I love it. It's my first fantasy novel that I've read and I absolutely love it. So essentially this book is set at a war college, and at this war college, when you are at the correct age, you can go off into these different quadrants. So you, for example, you could either go into the scribe quadrant, which means that you'll be a historian where you like write down all the notes and you capture all the history around the college, or another one is the writer's quadrant, where you can be bonded to a dragon and you get sent to the frontliner. And that's just a couple of the quadrants. So we follow the main character who goes off to the writer's quadrant, and in this particular quadrant it's very life or death. The chance of you dying is very, very high. So you follow her and she's like an unlikely candidate to be in this particular quadrant because she's quite weak and not built to be a dragon rider. So you follow her story and then you're also introduced to another character, and it's like a little romantic story of them as well. I don't want to give away too much, but it's so good. If you've read it, I'm up to the part, actually I won't tell you, but if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it because it is so good and I love it. I keep like reading it and going to bed so late. I think I've realized what I struggle with in terms of fantasy and sci-fi books though. I am not good at visualizing, so I'm good obviously at reading the descriptive text and I can follow along the story, but I don't necessarily visualize it. So when they might explain what the dragon looks like and they like go into detail about like the shape of the scales, the colors, the way the light reflects, all of that, I can't actually visualize it. So I think I struggle a bit there, but I love it and I really recommend picking it up if you haven't read this book already. I think it's going to be a 5-star read, but we'll have to wait and see how it ends. And then yesterday, I'll pop some video over this. I went to visit my partner's mum and there was like a little local bookshop. So we popped into there and I thought that I'd have a look and buy a book. Of course, you know, it was a little more expensive than if I bought the book from Kmart earlier in the week. But I do like to support the local bookshops as well. And this bookshop was stunning. So whilst I was there, I picked up Love Theoretically. I've heard such good things about this. I actually put it down when I went to Kmart. And then all I kept seeing was TikToks about how good this book was. I like Rachel Catherine, and I think she mentioned it in one of her videos as well. So picked up that. I thought like it would be a nice easy read too between like the more chunky books. And then I have a big Amazon haul to show you. So I thought that I'd take you through the Amazon books that I bought as well. I'm so excited. So I got Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score, and I also got The Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score as well. And then the third book I picked up from Kmart earlier in the week. I picked up Magnolia Parks. I've heard like controversial things about this. People love it or they have a issue with the characters. So I'm really excited to read this. My understanding is that it's a romance, but one of the main characters is a bit toxic. So I'm interested to read it and see what I think about. So I'm excited for that. So those are all romances. I picked up The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Very late to the game. I know that lots of people have read this book. They really, really love it. I don't know much about it, to be very honest. I just thought, why not? It sounds very interesting. It's about like a movie icon, and she finally is ready to tell about the truth and the scandalousness of her life. So I think it'll be a nice read. I'll definitely let you know. And then I just watched The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 2. So if you know, you know. And I was like, what is going on? So I wanted to read the book. So I actually got the little book series as well. So we've got The Summer I Turned Pretty, It's Not Summer Without You, and We'll Always Have the Summer. So I picked up the box set as well, which I'm so excited to start. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a book haul without picking up, you know, at least one bookmark. So I actually picked up two. So I've got this one which says Let Your Dreams Take Flight, which will be a good one for my fantasy book actually. And Live by the Sun, Love by the Moon. I just thought that this one looked beautiful. So that is my Amazon haul. I really, really, really want to read this book right now. I probably read it for a good few hours yesterday, but I actually have an exam for work tomorrow. So I need to study and then I can be rewarded. But I thought I'd pop on, give you the update of how I'm going with my current read and all the books that I picked up from Amazon. I finished Fourth Wing and I have never liked a book so much, and I don't care if that makes me cliched or mainstream. I absolutely loved this book. I finished it at like 1 a.m. So that's how much I loved it. I could not put it down. I actually cried at the end, and I don't normally cry at all in books. Very, very, like I don't think I ever have cried in a book. So like I loved it. If you are looking for a good read, if you've never really read fantasy and you want to try the genre and want something very easy to read, this one. I've already pre-ordered the next book and it's not even out till September, and I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I'm trying to convince myself I don't need to buy the hardcover version, but I like loved it. Like I'm so happy that I read this. It was so good. I've also looked at some merch because I really want like a jumper or something to do with the Fourth Wing book, but it's quite expensive, so I'll see. And then because I read fantasy and now I'm obsessed, I actually went to Kmart. So I'll pop over some footage. And I actually went to Kmart tonight and I got the ACOTAR series by Sarah J Maas, which I've heard amazing things about. So I don't know when I'm going to start this. I think I'm going to read an Emily Henry book in the interim and then start this. But I'm so excited! Ah! But I thought that I'd come and close off the vlog here. So I really hope you enjoyed this reading vlog. Feel free to pop some book recommendations in the description for me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!